Donald Trump held talks today with European leaders, and based on the results, I can say that British Prime Minister Keir Starmer was right when he urged not to manipulate the topic of talks between Trump and Putin. He said nothing terrible is expected for Ukraine. Donald Trump pledged that the United States will guarantee Ukraine's security against future Russian attacks and promised not to discuss territorial matters with Putin without Ukraine's involvement. Zelensky and European leaders now look optimistic after talking with Trump, since the Pentagon has already stated that the United States will not stop selling weapons to Ukraine. Whatever the outcome of the meeting between Trump and Putin in Alaska, at the same time, Volodymyr Zelensky warned United States President Donald Trump and European leaders that the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin is bluffing. And Trump, according to sources, took this into account, which is why he stated that the meeting in Alaska would be more of an introductory one rather than a final one. I'm Alexei Pechi. It's August 13th. Let's review the outcomes of Donald Trump's talks with Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders. What can we learn from these negotiations, and what should we expect from the Trump-Putin talks in Alaska on August 15th? Let's go through this step by step. Before we start, please like, comment, subscribe here, and join my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is in this video's description. So, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, held talks today with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, and European leaders to coordinate positions before negotiations with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. August 15th, during their talk, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Donald Trump about Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's bluff. Here's a quote. "Today we discussed the battlefield situation. I told the president and everyone else that I, Putin, am bluffing. He's trying to put pressure on everyone before the meeting in Alaska and pretend that the sanctions aren't working. In reality, the sanctions are very effective and are hitting the Russian economy hard." Zelensky acknowledged Russia has more weapons, especially artillery, 3 times more, but also said the enemy suffers 3 times more losses. Quote, "I told my colleagues, the president, and our European friends that Putin absolutely doesn't want peace. He wants to occupy our country, and we all know this. Putin won't be able to fool anyone. We need more pressure for peace, including both American and European sanctions." They also discussed the territorial issue. And so, according to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Ukraine is ready to discuss the issue of territory, but there is no talk of legal recognition of Russian sovereignty over the occupied areas. Friedrich Merz briefly summarized his phone conversation with United States President Donald Trump this way. According to him, Trump was told that first a ceasefire must be established at the front, and only after that will the parties try to reach a long-term agreement to end the war. Here's a quote from Merz. "Ukraine is ready to discuss territorial issues, but the starting point must be the front line, and recognition of the Russian occupation is not up for discussion." The German Chancellor said Trump was also informed about other positions held by Ukraine and Europe. In particular, it is noted that Kyiv must be at the table for the next round of negotiations, if the process continues at all after the meeting in Alaska. Merz also noted that the Ukrainian army must retain the ability to defend the state, but he also emphasized the need for viable long-term security guarantees for Ukraine. We'll return to the topic of guarantees later. There's some cautiously optimistic news here. According to French President Emmanuel Macron, who was also present at the negotiations, Trump told European leaders that he wants to achieve a ceasefire in Ukraine during his meeting with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. But Trump assured European leaders that any territorial issues related to Ukraine cannot be resolved without Ukraine's participation. In this way, Trump guaranteed that he would not make any territorial deals with Putin without the participation and approval of Volodymyr Zelensky. Macron also stated that the leaders made it clear that there must be a clear link between any potential territorial concessions and clear security guarantees for Ukraine. According to Volodymyr Zelensky, during the conversation with Trump and the European leaders, 5 common principles for ending Russia's war against Ukraine were agreed upon. And he is confident that Trump agrees to use these very principles as the basis for any negotiations with Putin. The principles are that everything concerning Ukraine must be discussed exclusively with Ukraine, meaning at least in a trilateral negotiation format involving the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. So here, Russia can't keep its wishful dreams in Moscow that Trump and Putin will divide the world in Alaska. That won't happen. According to the principles, a ceasefire and reliable security guarantees are required first. Also among the agreed principles, Russia cannot have veto power over Ukraine's European and NATO prospects. Zelensky also said peace talks should be paired with strong pressure on Russia. And then a quote from Zelensky: sanctions must be in place and must be strengthened if Russia does not agree to a ceasefire in Alaska. These are effective principles. It is important that they work. By the way, today the United States Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent stated that Trump will use the topic of sanctions during his meeting with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15. Bessent says Trump will make his stance clear to Putin. All options are on the table in the context of possible easing or, on the contrary, tightening of sanctions against Russia. The United States Treasury Secretary also clarified that sanctions can be tightened, can be eased, and can have expiration dates. He added that Europe should join the United States in these sanctions and help create more leverage. And here's the key point. As Zelensky stated and European leaders confirmed, United States President Donald Trump supports reliable security guarantees for Ukraine. He is ready to participate in providing such guarantees. And further, a quote from Zelensky: there must be security guarantees, truly reliable ones. Today, President Trump mentioned supporting this and America's readiness to participate. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said Ukraine needs a strong army and all allies should support this for security guarantees. And as reported today by Axios, citing statements from American officials, United States President Donald Trump is still angry at the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. And which is very important, even if his diplomatic efforts fail, he will not stop selling weapons to NATO countries for Ukraine. That is, Washington has given a clear guarantee that regardless of the outcome of the negotiations in Alaska, no one is going to stop selling weapons to Ukraine. This is the key point. I'll leave it at that for now. Friends, share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video or by using the QR code on your screen. That's all. Take care. Goodbye. Subtitles by Dima Turzok.